And we're live. Hi, all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there. And welcome to another episode here on the BC WrestlePod Network Syndicate Conglomeration YouTube Twitch dumb thing that we pretty much do every single little day of the week, except for Thursdays. I am welcome to another edition of the Six-Sided Scholars, your TNA PLE or PPV, however you want to call it, your pay-per-view review squad here at BC WrestlePod. I am one of your hosts, Mikey, as always, El Jefe around the BC WrestlePod parts. And, I don't have anything grand planned, but I've been saying this for every review leading to it. But joining me this evening is not my usual co-host, Will, who we'll talk about in a little bit, but the newest member to the BC WrestlePod chaotic family that is this thing, and Mr. JT himself. JT is a friend of mine through other nerdiness, and come to find out that he also likes wrestling. So that's how a lot of these stories start out with the host. So JT, welcome. You are our newest member here. How does it feel being here? And whatever else you want to share with the world.
Nice. So, thank you so very much for having me. So, like Mikey was saying, we are doing a TTRPG through one of his other groups, and we got to talking one day about wrestling, and I am super old school when it comes to wrestling, where some of my greatest memories were doing Portland Underground Wrestling. I'm from Oregon. To see people like Rowdy Piper and Hacksaw Jim Duggan and stuff like that in the old school. And one thing led to another, and here I am now doing hosting for TNA.
And what a way to throw in our newest host by having him cover a TNA pay-per-view. There is a small part of me that feels like maybe this was a lot to throw at him at first, but hey, you know what? When in Rome, do as the Romans do. You dive deep into the deep end with all of this. But I am happy that you are covering a TNA pay-per-view because I also feel like they're pretty easy to follow. Now, what I am more excited about is to kind of give you the rundown. So this is how it's going to go. So JT, since you're new, you get the orientation, if you will, of all of this. So the way that this usually works is when we cover a pay-per-view, we go through all the matches, we talk about the things we like, anything we disliked if we had to, whatever randomness we find. But also usually I do a quick rundown as to how we got to this point and why this match is happening on the pay-per-view. And TNA is an eclectic collection of some really great stories that are like very good written. There's also very camp, which is wrestling in general as well. So I'm more excited to do all that. But before we get into Sacrifice, just a little bit of El Jefe business dumb. If you like what you see on your screen here and you want to see more things like behind the scenes stuff, out of context clips that surely will never come to haunt us when we apply for jobs down the line, or if you want to, gear up with merchandise to support us, link in the description below. You got to follow us all over the social medias. Besides all those things, we also do report cards for the weekly shows, which give the results and our thoughts. We do these for the pay-per-views, out of context clips, again, that surely will not haunt us down the future, as well as some fun other stuff. And also be prepared. This is where I can make this big announcement too. In 3 weeks' time, BC WrestlePod will be hosting their second annual WrestleMania Hell Week, where we have WrestleMania and NXT pay-per-view duties as well as some other pay-per-views. So the whole crew is jumping in to help with that. I have a couple of the hosts coming to stay in my house over the course of a couple of days during that time. Sure, that's going to be a crazy one. But more information about that coming down the line. But without further ado, let's just jump in. So the cool thing with this is that the way that the schedule works out for us to review, we usually get to sit with the pay-per-view for a week before we review it to make sure that our feelings are correct. And my feelings about the pre-show match that I just want to talk about still remain the same. First class is booty cheeks. Don't like them, hate them. And once again, poor Laredo Kid is caught in the crossfire as cannon fodder because he never wins. He never wins. So this is free on YouTube if you want to go watch it. Now, here's the thing. I don't like First Class's characters, but I do like Casey Navarro. Not a big fan of AJ Francis, the big guy on First Class, and I love Laredo Kid. But as soon as I saw this matchup, I'm like, yeah, Laredo and Octagon are not going to win. And boy, howdy, was I right. So that is all I had to say on that. I don't want to talk anymore because I'm going to be very upset. So, yes. So, JT, with most of the TNA pay-per-views, they do a free pre-show on YouTube, and then you have to jump onto either the app or wherever you're paying for the pay-per-view to watch the actual pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So
I remember seeing them in when I was watching for Sacrifice, and man, those guys can run their mouth.
Yeah,
that's Lord.
That's kind of their shtick right now, is that they're the type of heels that just run their mouths, and their whole gimmick of being like money. I'm like, nah, we're good.
Yeah. That's gonna get put in a check here soon. I can see it.
So when we talk about the last night's episode really quickly too, I'm like, Texas is about to see a beatdown of First Class, and I'm kind of here for it. So that is the pre-show match, but now we get into the main card, which is where we're going to spend most of our time with, because we kick things off with a street fight of all things. Lord have mercy. So this is Sami Callihan. Where do I even start? So this was a street fight. Literally, as the main card came on, they were already fighting in the ring. There were weapons of mass destruction everywhere. There were staple guns being used. At one point, Mance's tongue got stapled into the ring corner. So the way that this match came about is, so at the last pay-per-view Genesis, we were getting teased with this 14, like this 24 gimmick. Like they were playing numbers, hacking the system, everything. And Sami Callihan, the wrestler to our left here, JT, is known to be the death machine himself, playing the hacker, things like that. It's very an interesting character. So it got revealed that this 24 hacker happened to be not Mance here on the right, but the woman in the background next to him, in Steph DeLander, who is another wrestler in TNA, and she's currently the TNA Digital Media Champion. So she was revealed to do this. She brought in Mance. These two have been fighting for over the last month and a half, and now we got the street fight because they could not, a regular match on regular TV could not suffice, and they wanted to kill each other. So they're like, why don't we just give them all the weapons for this match? So Mance Warner does pick up the victory here. But yeah, I will never look at a staple gun the same way again, especially when we staple in tongues to ring posts. That was wild, JT.
And that was last night. Forgive me, all you loyal fans out there. I wasn't able to end up watching that. I was solely focused on Sacrifice because of how we'll get into it. There's a couple of people in there that are near and dear to my heart, and so I was like watching that over and over. But Mance was in Sacrifice, wasn't he?
Yeah, so this was the match that opened up Sacrifice. Yeah,
again, he rode in on a freaking horse.
Yeah, that's kind of his thing, because his mom. Okay, so JT, you know this with wrestlers, they have their little wrestling monikers that people know them as.
Yeah,
like this Mance Warner is the Southern Psychopath. That is his moniker in TNA, and that's been his moniker because Mance is currently wrestling in TNA, but he's more known in another promotion called GCW, Game Changer Wrestling. But yeah, the Southern Psychopath is his moniker, and boy howdy, he's the Southern Psychopath. Man rode in on a horse. Like, yeah, what?
He was. I like that is outside of some of the other like the cutter moves and stuff that he was doing. Holy crap, that is memorable for not, just now coming kind of into this. It's been a little bit, but coming into this and seeing a man ride in on a horse, that definitely ends up catching your eye real quick.
Yeah, so of course the Southern Psychopath does win. We'll see what the next couple of weeks is, but I don't I can tell you right now, I don't think Sami Callihan's going to let this lie. He's not going to leave this lying down. We are probably going to get another round or not. Who knows? But Mance does pick up the victory here thanks to some interference from Steph DeLander, as it is in the street fight, because there are no rules. But again, this was a chaotic way to start the main card, and I loved every single minute of it. JT, one thing you will find once we do TNA, when TNA brings out their crazy stipulations like the cage match, street fights, Monsters Ball, if we ever get one sometime this year, which is my favorite and stupid stipulation, but I love it. I am a sick freak. I love propensity for violence. So these are the types of matches I was like, yes, gift me more. And I thought this was honestly, I think this was a really smart way to open it up because they spaced out all the craziness of some of these gimmick matches, which we'll talk about as we go on. But that was what kicked off the show. And we move on into our second match of the evening, which was our first women's match. So we had 3 of them on the card. And this was just a singles match between a returning Tessa Blanchard, who's returned back towards the tail end of 2024, taking on TNA's newest acquisition and one of my personal favorites, Miss Liang Li. So first, I got to talk about this. So Tessa, we got to talk, girl. So I have made it no secret that Tessa's return to TNA is not without some controversy, given what happened last time she was here in TNA pre-pandemic and all that stuff. And some of the things that went on backstage. Now, again, I am a person that believes in second chances, but we have to address it. We have yet to address it, and we are continuing to just have Tessa be an absolute turd of a heel, and it's not really helping. And then I was like, okay, you know what? This match is going to be fun. Tessa Blanchard, no way, shape, or form, unless I am misinformed. You are not Latina in any chance. So you coming out in the braids and the flag and everything, which you said was an homage to where you were wrestling previously in Mexico. Girl, we cannot be culturally appropriating in our wrestling. I was like, no, we were so close. Tessa, I still am on the fence, but damn, girl, you're making it harder and harder for me to defend you. Oh, God, that was hard. But hey, you know what? Now, on the other hand, Miss Liang Li, your entrance on this show and on Thursday's show with the outfit, and I was like, yes, Mortal Kombat, come through.
Yep.
Which, I love Liang Li because she does incorporate, I believe she's a 2-time black belt martial artist, so she actually is fluent in the martial arts, and she incorporates that into her wrestling. Now, outside of the cultural appropriation from Tessa, this is actually a very strong match. I really like this one. They brought it, and on paper, I wasn't sure how their styles would collide because Tessa's more of a traditionalist when it comes to wrestling. And like I said before, Liang Li incorporates her martial arts into like the American style of wrestling. But my God, these two actually, the chemistry was there. This is a lot more hard hitting than I thought. This was fantastic. Tessa wins, but damn, man, she had to earn that one, which I was very surprised because Tessa's been pushed as, she gonna be beating everybody, but she had to fight for this one, which I actually like. So
yeah, there was a couple of times there that Tessa was going for the pin, and they do that half 3 call, like just almost touching. And, Lee would jump up. Or I personally, when I was watching this match, like you said, Tessa comes in cocky as all hell. And Lee comes in looking like a Mortal Kombat extra unlock character, which I was like, let's go. I was going for Lee because I always go for the people that are a little more like strong, subdued kind of. And damn, she looked strong. And they're going back and forth doing their thing. And even the announcer said it, if Lee can get a little bit of that opening, if you will, and you see it, and she just pummels the ever living crap out of Tessa. Like, it was insane to watch this. And like you said, the martial arts prowess definitely was showing through at that time. And when I saw it, you can kind of feel it in the air sometimes. And Tessa's going for the ropes and doing all of these things, and I'm like, no, this has got to turn around. And it almost happened, and then Tessa won. Good fight, amazing fight. That was like literally at the end of my seat because of all of the counts. It was truly insane. Really good fight for a start.
Right. And like I said, this is one of 3 women's matches that we got on this pay-per-view, and I really like this one. And honestly, sometimes matches don't need the craziest story builds, because literally this was just Tessa and Liang Li backstage having words with each other, and they're like, okay, we're gonna fight each other at Sacrifice. I'm like, hey, you know what? More women's matches for me. I'm never going to complain about getting more of our knockouts division, which is what TNA calls their women's division on the cards, which is great. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised of how much I liked this match. I loved it. This was great. Tessa continues her dominant ways, and it seems, because we'll briefly touch upon the ending. I think we are heading towards a Masha Slamovich and Tessa Blanchard collision at Rebellion for that women's knockout title. So, but more on that in a little bit, because right now we got to talk about this match. I really love this. So, JT, you might be wondering yourself, why is there NXT? Why is there the NXT logo next to Wesley, Tyson, DuPont, and Tyreek Igwe? Well, I'm glad you did not. I'm just kidding. So recently TNA and NXT, which is the third brand for WWE's, because WWE has their main roster of Raw and SmackDown. And I mean, technically, people call NXT the developmental brand. I'm more inclined to call it the third, because it's just on equal ground, if not a little bit better than the main roster when it comes to the in-ring action. But TNA and NXT have recently announced so they had a little bit of a partnership towards the second half of 2024 last year, but then they announced a multi-year deal between TNA and NXT. So thus we will see TNA stars in NXT, and NXT's stars, or kids as we call them, because most of them are under the age of like 27 at this point. They're all young ones coming on over to TNA and crossing the line, so to speak. So to give a little bit of context of where this match is coming from, so the Rascals of Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz, which are the 2 men on top on the left side, they are known as the Rascals. And when Wesley on the right hand side was in TNA, he was part of the Rascals. So he went from TNA to WWE a couple years ago, and now he's underneath the new name of Wesley. So this actually has some history in it, because Zachary Wentz and Wesley over the last year were fighting and things like that. And so Zach ended up winning. So now Wes has his little group in NXT come on over, and thus we have this 3-man fight. Ace Austin is a singles wrestler, but also was part of the story because, why not? But this was also another really great match. And it wasn't until the actual match started where we were told this would be underneath Lucha rules, which means basically it's like a tornado tag match where nobody needs to necessarily tag in, is chaotic. I am still impressed with the Rascals and their inventive offense, like the way that they just like defy all laws of physics and gravity and hopping around and things like that. I really like this match. This was a standard 6-on-6, but damn, man, the Rascals and Ace Austin, I'm just like, do y'all not have no like flexibility? It does not, like, what is happening?
They're following those lucha rules. That's what you do. You get in that lucha and you fly around like crazy.
It was so dang good. And Rascals and Ace Austin do win. So they send the NXT boys back into NXT. But this has been a fun feud, and this was great. And it seems that we are going to be having these 3, the Rascals and Ace Austin, go up against some other people, which we'll get to at the very end of our show. But This was the most, I'm gonna be honest, JT. This was literally a last minute match that was added on the Go Home show the day before. And okay. So here's what you gotta understand, JT. So Frankie Kazarian, Steve Macklin. Match itself was fine. It's to continue the storyline of what Macklin is doing with, Eric Young and the Northern Armory, which, are the people who appear towards the end of this. We love Steve Macklin and his square jaw. Like, Will pointed it out to me, and I'm so mad I can't unsee it now. But of course, as you could probably tell from the picture and what you saw in the match, Macklin's character is based on his real life as a former Marine. Literally, he yells "bag him" and "tag him" when he does his finisher. So that's the whole thing. Frankie Kazarian, longtime wrestler, veteran of the business, has been doing this. He TNA legend, also was part of one of the biggest tag teams back in the heyday of the 2000s with the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels. So anybody who knows their ROH and stuff like that, there you go. But Frankie Kazarian's current character, he's just a douchebag. He looks like somebody who's going through a midlife crisis. And you can literally see that in his entrance and how he dresses himself with the big old scarf and the sunglasses. And the thing about this, JT, is Frankie Kazarian is carrying around this big old trophy, which is the Call Your Shot Gauntlet. So, of the equivalent of WWE's Money in the Bank briefcase, Frankie can cash that trophy in to get a championship match at any time, anywhere. That includes after a championship match has happened. So, he's been holding on to this, and me and Will are just waiting for the other shoe to drop when he takes it away from our boy Joey Hendry or whatever other title. But this was just a match that had the match. This was well worked, but more so, this was just to get Macklin the win. I mean, he did get some help from Eric Young and the Northern Armory in this match when Frankie Kazarian tried to cheat with the brass knuckles, which did not work. So, yeah, I have nothing else to add. No notes. This was fine, and I was happy that Macklin won.
So who do you think Kazarian's gonna cash that trophy in for? Do you have any thoughts?
Honestly, I'm still banking that he might cash in on Joe Hendry, who is like the main world title champion, who we'll talk about in our main event, because I don't see Frankie going after Moose in the X division, which is like your mid-card championship. He doesn't have a tag team partner, so he can't go after the tag titles against the Hardys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think ultimately he's going to cash that in against Joe Hendry. Now, whether he's successful or not in doing so, we'll have to find out whenever Frankie decides to cash that in. But it makes me sad because I'm like, Frankie as champion just makes me goes, ugh. As his character. I love him as an actual person and wrestler. Like, he's fantastic, but his wrestling character sucks. I hate it. Me and Will cannot stand this man.
Yeah, he kind of has that air about him.
Which is good because he's doing his job properly, because he's being the heel that we don't like, and that's what it is. But we go from a person me and Will really don't like to a match we both, Will and I, love, because this has been the dumbest story ever, but like in the best way possible. So this is for the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Championship. So yes, the women's division in TNA does have tag team championships, which is great. But this is a weird one, because this is for the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Championships in a 2-on-3 handicap match, where we have the champions on the left, which is Spitfire, Jody Threat on the top, Danny Luna on the bottom, taking on the House of Elegance. So Ash by Elegance on the bottom, Heather Elegance on the middle, and their personal concierge, George Iceman, on the top. Let me tell you how this match was made. So 2 weeks ago on TNA television, in a backstage segment prior to the match, because these two teams fought at Genesis back in January, which was the last pay-per-view before this one we're talking about. Will was there because it was also in Texas, so very lucky that he went. But that's besides the point. These two teams fought. Spitfire retained their championships, and so the House of Elegance has been wanting a rematch. So Our director of authority, and yes, it is that person I'm talking about, Mr. Santino Marella. Yes, that's Santino. Was not going to give them the match, but the Spitfire girls decided, hey, we'll give you the match. It'll be for the championship, but the loser has to become the other team's personal concierge for 24 hours. It was best to say that Spitfire won. So then we got backstage segments for the rest of the night with the House of Elegance girls, who are giving this very model-esque characters and like lavish lifestyle, to having to walk the dog, clean gym clothes and dirty wrestling pads. Then they even took them to work out in the park and spar in the boxing ring. It was hilarious. So George Iceman, the concierge to the House of Elegance girls, dressed up in like a $5 disguise with like a horrible wig and sunglasses, saved the House of Elegance girls by beating up the champions with a mop broomstick handle. I was like, and so the go home show, the champions were mad. Everybody was fighting. The director of authority, Santino, made a championship match for Sacrifice, but it would be a 2-on-3 because of his involvement of getting the House of Elegance girls and attacking the champions. George Reichman was the third party for the House of Elegance in this 2-on-3 camp.
You just got to continue the camp. You already started it. Just keep camping.
Well, this match kept going because he is not a wrestler. We know this, but I was laughing my butt off in this match in the best way possible when he got in the ring and Danny Luna, like, he tried to twist Danny Luna and she just stood there. She looked at him and he backed off so quick and tagged in with Heather by Elegance. I was like, this is great. And to my surprise, the 3-on-1 kind of works because the House of Elegance are your new Knockouts Tag Team Champions, which we love. This has been me and Will's favorite story going on for the last couple of months or so, because the Knockouts Tag Team division is very shallow because there's not a lot of women's tag teams right now, but these four have been doing the best with what they've been given, and we've been enjoying every minute. And we got new champs, which is crazy to me. So, yes, more than anything, JT, I'm so excited to introduce you to the wackiness that is the House of Elegance and just the way they present their characters. It is so ridiculous. I love it.
That has been kind of the unique is a great way to describe a lot of the TNA genre, if you will, the TNA's way that they do things, and I'm totally here for it. Like I said, I'm kind of old school when it comes to the wrestling stuff, so like I'm not used to people going out in the middle of a stage and just randomly singing, or having promotional codes barked out while they're trying to flaunt their stuff. So like I like how this is going. This will be fun.
Yeah, and with the House of Elegance as our new tag team champs, I'm excited to see, obviously, the inevitable rematch between them and Spitfire, but they also have some other tag teams who are looking to take those titles from them. More on that in a little bit, but we go from our Knockouts tag team match to one of my personal favorite stories TNA is telling right now. So this is Mustafa Ali and Mike Santana. So here is how the story has gone, because this has been one of the wildest ones, and this has been the most real, I guess is the best way to put it. So to give a little bit of context, and I say this all the time, but Mike Santana is actually 2 years sober. So he is very proud of his sobriety, things like that. We love wrestlers and do that. So I'm pretty sure there was a conversation with Mike and Ali as well as TNA to run with this story. So the story started out in February when Mustafa Ali returned and he assigned a long-term deal with TNA, because before then in 2024 he was like on short term and was just kind of here. But now he signed a long-term, so he's going to be here for a little bit. So this all started because the previous face of the company, Josh Alexander, his contract came up and he left the company. So in all means and purposes, based on how Mike Santana has been built, Mike Santana is the next face after Joe Hendry for the men's division. Mustafa Ali comes back in this presidential character. So yes, he is a president of TNA, is what he's calling himself. Literally, he has a whole cabinet and everything. It is wild. And the way that he talks is I find it very fun in the sense that this is a POC wrestler, so a person of color, emulating a very traditional, misogynistic, dare I say, republicanism president that, is crazy to me, but I love it because it takes what's actually happening and it's like a minority doing this, which is great. But Ali comes back. He says that he's the face of the company. So these two have been kind of going back and forth with silly shenanigans. It starts off lighthearted, Ali being the comedic heel. Then these two have a sit down and it gets, first it gets real because Ali starts to play mind games with Mike Santana. A couple weeks ago, we get a pre-tape promo where Mike Santana is in an AA meeting with some other folks, and Ali comes in, sits in, says an inspirational speech like a presidential candidate does. Everybody else is eating it up, and then he whispers to Mike. He's like, "Hey, Mike, some people can change, but you ain't one of them, and I can come get you even in your safest of spaces," and leaves. I was like, "Oh shit, this story is about to get real." It gets better though. So last week we have a sit down with one of our commentators mediating it, and they go back and forth. Mike Santana calling Ali out on his crap, calling him, fake and things like that. And then Ali hits him with that, Mike Santana, you don't know what it's like. You haven't faced adversity. You haven't been under pressure. Pressure is what builds character. And my friend, you have not got. They went back and forth with the deep cuts. It ended up into a fist fight in which Ali and his cabinet members were getting attacked and jumped by Mike Santana, but the numbers game ended up being too much. But then to add insult to injury, Mike Santana, because of course is a recovering alcoholic, Ali pours him a glass of wine with a passed out Mike Santana, sits it in front of them and says, "You're going to need this when you wake up." And then this is how it goes. And we'll talk about the match itself, but that ending shot though of this match, when Ali takes a beer from somebody in the audience and puts it on the apron and tells Mike he's going to need it again too, I'm like, this is the realest story I have seen, and this is by far my favorite story in any promotion in 2025. The match itself was crazy enough too, because I come to find out later that Ali had a dislocated jaw at one point in this match, and he self-corrected it and continued with the match. That's why he was holding on to his jaw a lot towards the tail end of this match.
That makes so much sense. Like that was an intense back and forth between them, and I think that little mind game that Ali did might have gotten under Santana's skin, and that's the outcome that it was.
Oh, absolutely. Ali does get the best and he wins here, which, me and Will predicted Mike Santana to win, but I'm kind of glad that Mike didn't win because this sets up for what I call the trilogy, where feuds usually have 3 matches before we move everybody on to new opponents. So ultimately, I think Mike will win the feud, but I like this because Mike Santana is the best as a character when he's the underdog in this. So Ali got the best of him in round 1. I'm sure Mike will get him back when we have the second confrontation at the next pay-per-view. Or, if we just want to go balls to the wall and do something crazy at Rebellion, Mike Santana is definitely going to be the next face of TNA. Literally, I will assign you Homer JT later. You need to watch Mike and Josh Alexander's I Quit match at Genesis from earlier this year.
Yep.
Because it is everything, and I'm jealous that Will was there live to see all that go down. But
go ahead. I was gonna say I'm 100% with you. When I saw this match start out, I truly thought that Santana was going to take it, and just between the powerbomb suplexes, you're cut it was back and forth, just intense, insane, and kind of the disrespect that like Ollie's side chick was given Santana. I'm like, no, no, no. But like you've got a real good point that this loss, hopefully, I'm gonna say this loss will create the win down the road, and that's gonna be when this next fight that Santana goes into is going to be just like you said, balls to the wall, just like people are gonna get wrecked.
Yeah, exactly. This is probably one of my favorite feuds. This is just the start of this feud, but this is already my favorite feud so far in TNA, and probably both the men's and the women's division. And the story of how we got to this first encounter, if they keep it up with the consistency and how well they've been playing the story with the backstage segments and everything, I'm calling it right now. I think this might end up being my favorite feud of the year, but we'll see what the rest of the year provides. But this was a great first encounter. Both men are fantastic wrestlers in their own right, technical wise, but the story just adds that underlying element to make it even more enjoyable. But yeah, this was definitely one of the highlights of Sacrifice for me. I think this match and probably our main event probably were in the top two of my list of everything, which was a very solid show through and through, though. This was very solid all the way around. There was not, minus the pre-show, there wasn't really anything I was like, that kind of sucked. I didn't like it that much. Well,
Agreed.
well, then again, I have to remember we still have a couple more matches to talk about. But let's talk about girls fighting. This is our.
Oh,
You want to talk about a knockout, dragged out fight like these
good
two?
Lord.
Masha Slamovich, or TNA Knockouts champion, taking on NXT's Cora Jade. These girls did not come to play. This was literally,
No.
I'm about to fight you and maybe give you a concussion.
Yep, 100%. Like Jade coming out swinging when they started that fight. Like I already had my prediction when they went into this, I was like, oh god, Masha looks like she's just gonna wipe the floor with Cora. Like, and then bell rings and Cora just comes out fists swinging, and I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. And it was like in a relentless pummel up until Masha had the ability to gain some ground. But that was, like you said, knockout, drag out, let's go girls fight.
So Masha is very near and dear to our hearts here at TNA because she's been, the last 2 years that we've seen her, she's gone from being a tag team champion to, fighting the previous champion, Jordan Grayson, coming up short twice, to this past October at Bound for Glory 2024, finally beating Jordan, becoming the women's knockouts, the TNA Knockouts World Champion. And now she's just on a tear, which I love. She is a face. She is a good guy, but she will punch you in the face if she needs to, which is great. Also, her ring gear when she comes out dressed like the Matrix and other things is just great. I love her. I love her fashion sense. It is very 90s coded, and I am here for it as a child of the 90s. But the I'm always impressed by Masha, but I was really impressed with Cora because she's been out for a year on injury. She came back in NXT for a little bit, and she's been involved with the championship over here. So it's been nice to see her over the last couple weeks be here as a representative of NXT. She gets to face the TNA Knockouts World Champion, and she held her own, which is really great. And the fact that both of these girls are not even 25 yet baffles my mind. Masha is like barely 24. Like, but she fights like she's been fighting in this business forever. Same thing with Cora. These girls are under 25. Like, it's wild how good they are at this age. And I can only imagine how much better they're going to be by the time they get to be 30. Like, holy crap.
Yeah, they're definitely gonna. That's gonna be one of those ones, and like you said, in 5 years' time, like to watch the experience that they gain, and also kind of watch the path that they're going to take. Like that's gonna be, it'll be worth the wait, if you will.
I love it. And I'm kind of glad that me and Will get to introduce you to the TNA this way because it gives you a lot of the central characters that we get to see most of the time. And it's really good. This was a really great championship match. Masha retains, and Masha's gonna have her hands busy because she's gonna seems to have a couple of challengers lined up for her. But Tessa's waiting in the wings, man. We'll see how long we wait until we get that collision because these two have been eyeing each other for the last couple of months too. So this is gonna be interesting. But
That's going to be a powerhouse show.
Lord
Watching the
have
two of them.
mercy.
Good
Lord
Lord.
have mercy. Who knows when we're gonna get that? I would not be surprised if they put Tessa and Masha at Rebellion in April, but we'll see without that. So now I do have to break JT's heart a little bit because let's talk about this ladder match. Okay, let me set this up and then I'm gonna let JT go off. So he has his notes for this, so this is gonna be good. But in our semi-main event, this is a TNA X Division Championship ladder match with the champion Moose taking on the challenger, one half of the TNA Tag Team Champs in Jeff Hardy. The Hardys are back in TNA. They're currently on their what I call the retirement tour. I think they got like a couple more years, like 2 or 3, maybe 4 more years before they hang it up for good. But Jeff Hardy, watching him go through ladders and things like this at his age is still wild to me. And when we talk about giving wrestlers second chances, like Jeff Hardy has come back with a vengeance since those years ago from when he was like his substance abuse issues that caused him a lot of problems in WWE, and now to see him kind of be thriving and killing it like this is great. But now I give the floor to JT because the Hardys are his like. Okay, JT, tell me your thoughts about this match, how you feel, all this stuff.
All right, so just so all you viewers know, the Hardy Boys, they were my tag team crew back in the day. So to see Jeff Hardy in this match, doing a ladder match nonetheless, the first time that I come into watching TNA, honestly, I'm going to tell you this right now, just to be transparent, I didn't know that the Hardy Boys were in TNA. And so to see Jeff Hardy come out in a ladder match up against a dude named Moose, which I'm like, oh, I don't think you're going to survive this, Moose. I know that you might be the champion, but you're going up against a Hardy Boy. And the athleticism that Jeff Hardy still has at this age, like you said, Mikey, it's going to be, give him another 5 years or so, and he can put the belt up. He can wipe off the face paint. He can go back to just maybe actually climbing up and down a ladder instead of jumping off of it. But this match was insane. Broken rungs, people flying, broken table. I mean, it's pretty much anything that they put out there got broken. And it was mainly Moose driving Jeff into it to break it. But this was kind of broke my heart a little bit. I know I get retribution later, but it broke my heart a little bit. But it was amazing to have that nostalgia come back. And I went, yep, this is it. This is going to be the match that's going to get me invested in TNA. And I'm going to be like, all right, let's go. Come on. That's just bring the drama, bring the pain.
It's just like, you can catch me here every Friday now. No, I think this was a fantastic main event. Of course, it's Jeff Hardy, so I'm like, oh my God, Moose, you threw him through the ladder and the table. Oh God, somebody gonna get hurt. Oh no. Of course, Moose does retain. I figured he would because TNA, I don't think yet would put a singles champion on Jeff, who is part of the tag team champions. But damn, this is still a really fun match. I love seeing the Hardy Boys do this. Speaking of a Hardy, we go on from Jeff to his brother Matthew because he is participating in the main event, which is a 10-man tag team match. So this is the team of our TNA World Champion, I Believe in Joe Hendry. Look, there's a reason that we call ourselves BC WrestlePod because we ogle our men's and women's evenly, and Will has fallen head over heels with Joe Hendry. and his Scottish accent, but that's neither here nor there. And Joe is leading his team, which is the other half of the TNA Tag Team Champs, and Matt Hardy. So Mr. Matthews in this match. Newly signed to TNA, Elijah, who is a rock and roll Jesus, which I love him. Then you have the young OG from the UK and Leon Slater, one of my personal favorites, and I am so excited TNA is finally pushing him. And then, of course, formerly known as Dolph Ziggler in WWE, but now it's going by his real name of Nick Nemeth. So that is the face team, and they are going up against the System, which is Eddie Edwards, Brian Myers, and Johnny Dango Curtis, otherwise known as JDC. And of course, for you old school wrestling fans, the System is teaming up with the Colognes, which is also very fun to watch. This match was chaotic AF. I loved every single minute of it.
Yeah, that was it. Cage matches like that, especially a 10 person cage match, like you just keep intensifying the crazy, and it keeps going and going. You got guys climbing. That's the one thing that I always love watching in cage matches is who can get somebody to the top of the cage and suplex them off first. Like that's the meat and potatoes for me. Watching all of, Joe Hendry and Leon Slater, like it was, I almost had those moments where I was like, well, this is going to be a clean like it's a clean sweep. No worries. And then I start seeing things kind of shift and I'm going, I'm not liking how this is going, but you guys, yeah. So, and then watching Matt Hardy, like, I'm like, yay, there's another Hardy. They weren't paired up, but that's okay. It was just insane. 10 people, one cage. Insane.
It really was. And of course, Team Joe Hendry does pick up the victory here, but Sacrifice does not end on like we can go home happy shop because Nick Nemeth's brother, Ryan Nemeth, is out there. Everybody is exiting the cage. They lock the cage, and Nick and Ryan beat up on Matt Hardy to end the show. I'm like, all right, now I got to watch Thursday to see how that goes. But before we get into that brief recap, overall, Sacrifice was a really, really strong pay-per-view. Like, I think this definitely sets up what's going to be on TV for the next couple of weeks. And potentially this sets up for all the matches that we're going to get April 27th for TNA's next pay-per-view in Rebellion, which I'm super excited about because Rebellion is in Los Angeles and TNA rarely comes out to the West Coast because since they're a smaller promotion, they usually do the circuits around the South and the East. But because we're going to be in Los Angeles, I get to be there. I'm going to Rebellion. So I'm super excited. I get to be in the live audience for Rebellion. So that's going to be fun. But damn, Sacrifice was such a... So let's briefly talk about this Thursday episode. So Thursday episode. Here we go. So now we're just going to do a brief run through. Normally, we spend about an hour talking about everything that went down in TNA for Thursday, but let's do a brief recap. We start things off with Masha Slamovich. She comes out. Tessa Blanchard comes out, so we're still building that. But then Masha is attacked by NXT's JC Jane, and we get JC versus Masha next week on television, which is going to be fantastic. Also, by the way, TNA, whoever's in charge of your, advertising graphics for the shows, I'm here for it. Look at this. This is beautiful. I love this. So that is how we open the show. Masha gets to face JC from NXT next week, and Tessa and her and Masha are still continuing to feud, which is great. First match of the night was the Northern Armory. So this is Judas. So basically, they call themselves the Northern Armory, but the real tag team name, they are known as Sinner and Saint, taking on the Rascals, which is Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz. Rascals win. This was a fun match. Eric Young in the background. Him and Steve Macklin are kind of like sort of friends, but not really. It's a weird dichotomy in the world of wrestling. I was like, it's crazy. This match was fantastic. It was great. We're continuing to tell the Macklin and Eric Young story, and Rascals get one over, so we get to continue their winning streak, which is great. Still hate First Class, but this was a fun segment because Chavo Guerrero put them in their places. And our luchadors from the pre-show in Laredo Kid and Octagon Jr., they might have a 6-man tag team match. So it's going to be Chavo and the Aztec Warriors versus First Class and Frankie Kazarian. I'm like, they're in Texas. There's no way Chavo walks out as the loser in this one. Sorry, can't say this. But the Guerrero family line is very strong in Texas. R.I.P. Eddie Guerrero, one of my personal favorite wrestlers of all times. Love him. Viva la raza, man. Technically, we got Ali versus Mike Santana too, but Ali's like, I'm not giving him the satisfaction. Halfway, leaves to the crowd, gets the 10 count out. Mike Santana wins via count out, but you know that Mike ain't gonna take this line down. And in a backstage segment, Ali is done with Mike Santana. He's not giving him any more chances. He proved that he's better of Mike Santana. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a fun feud for the second chapter. There's no way Mike is going to let them live this down. I love it. I cannot wait. So good. Nick and Ryan, why did you attack Matt Hardy? And their reasoning, because they are tired of seeing the Hardys siphon off of the tag team and their names. So the Nemeth brothers are going to take the titles from them and show them who the better brother tag team is, which I was like, listen, I'm kind of here for this because I love the Hardys. I like Nick. Ryan's annoying as a wrestling character, but he's doing his job. And honestly, I think this is good because if we're not going to put Nick Nemeth back in the title picture to face Joe Hendry, I'm okay with the tag team division using 4 actual siblings to each other to fight. So this is great. I love that part. We had a women's tag team match. Xia Li and Liang Li taking on Savannah Evans and from the Dark Realm herself, Rosemary, which I love. Again, Liang Li and just acrobatic diving out of the ring. This is great. Liang Li and Xia Brookside win. The baby faces win. This was a fun match. It was great. We tried to have a celebration with that House of Elegance girls, but we got lots of women's tag teams who want a shot at the championships. So we tried to get these celebration going. There was cake involved, but it did not get to that point because Spitfire comes out. They want a rematch. Then from NXT, we have the Metaphor girls of Jakara Jackson and Last Legend from NXT come on out, and they want a challenge for the titles. And then we have the emo Powerpuff Girls, as I call them, from also NXT, and Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley, who also want a match. We have 8 women in this ring. They begin to brawl. Santino comes out, makes a match for Gigi and Tatum versus House of Elegance next week. But Spitfire and Lash and the Metaphor girls will be waiting in the wings. So I'm like, yes, with this NXT partnership, we have more women's tag teams to be on the show. So now I'm excited. This is great. Also, this picture of the girls in their championships just makes me laugh in the best way possible. I love it. Main event time. Joe Hendry and Jesus himself, Elijah. Rock and roll Jesus himself, Elijah, taking on Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers of the System. Really good main event. The good guys of Joe Hendry and Elijah win. Fantastic way to send the crowd home happy. And I am excited for next week. So that brings us to the end of our TNA review quickly through. But yeah, so JT, you did it. You survived your first week on TNA panel by covering Sacrifice. How do you feel?
I wasn't sacrificed. Oh, wait, that was a play on words. I'm sorry. This was amazing. Thank you so very much. And it was a nice way to start myself back into kind of the wrestling scene, if you will. Like, at least I had people that I knew. I was a little worried coming into this where I was going to go, wow, there's so many people. I have no clue what's going on. But like, what a great way to start. Seriously. Thank you.
I purposely, because when you say I want to be on TNA and I'm willing to cover the pay-per-view, I was like, I'm not going to tell them that the Hardys are here. So I'm just going to let that to be a good surprise.
That was a very good surprise. Yeah,
yes.
that was awesome.
Yeah, and Will and I love the Hardys and here in TNA, so we're excited. But that is going to be it for us here at Six Sided Scholars. That is going to bring us to the end of TNA Sacrifice and a quick recap of this past Thursday's episode. But fret not, mon amis, we will be back next Friday, hopefully with the whole entire crew. So the trio of us, my JT and will be here to review next week's episode of TNA. But if you are wondering what other goodness we have in store, well, Sunday, we will be here at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where myself, Minnie, the professor, and Kilt all talk about this past week at WWE. They're on their international dates before WrestleMania, so we're going to talk about Raw and SmackDown and the matches that have been made for Mania coming in the next couple of weeks, which is super exciting. And then we will be back to everything that we normally do: AEW, CMLL, NXT, TNA. It is such a great time to be a wrestling fan in 2025. So stay tuned to all the social medias about that. But yeah, like I said, JT, I am happy to have you as our newest member here at BC Wrestle Pod. So I'm just excited to have you here, and I cannot wait to bring you more into the cult of wrestling. It's going to be great.
This is going to be completely awesome. Like I can't wait.
But that is going to be it for us here at the BC WrestlePod for the evening. So, from myself, JT, in spirit, Will, and the rest of the BC WrestlePod family, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We'll catch you later on Sunday for our WWE review. But until then, sayonara, adios, and take care of yourselves tonight. We'll talk to you later.